And welcome in everybody to another episode of the High Low Sports Podcast. We are pleased to have you join us here on this Wednesday evening, or if you're checking us out later on in the week at one of your favorite places to listen to or check out podcasts. It is always fun to talk about what's going on in the wide world of sports and sometimes a little bit extra with you all as well. It is DJ joined as always by my co-host Kelcey. And you know what, Kelcey? It's kind of the weird time of the year where we're very close to summertime, but it's not quite summertime. NBA playoffs are where it gets the water gets thick, if you will. Baseball, you start to the teams that start off hot come back down to earth a little bit. NFL training camp is around the corner, so everyone starts overhyping and everyone thinks they have a chance right now. UFLs and it's a fun time of the year. And we say that every single week, but I think what makes this time interesting is not only is it hotter than holy heck out in some places, but then in other places it's getting snow. So depending on where you live, it could be a tale of two different sports stories.
Yeah, it's a wild time in sports. It's always one of the more fun times in sports. I say that. I feel like I say that every week. I
I
feel like
think we did,
sports,
but that's then again, it's been the same thing for like 8 weeks straight. So maybe in 2 weeks it won't be a wild time in sports. Give us 2 weeks and we'll think of a new intro.
yeah, we'll get to the dog days of
Yeah.
summer soon. But NBA playoffs are always exciting. If anybody knows my opinion on that, it's the best time of the year for NBA basketball. WNBA getting ready to start up. I know new people are finally excited about this. Well, I've been excited for this for a decade, at least. And that's starting. We're getting into the Champions League final here soon. And as you said, baseball. Well, it's in the stretch right before the All-Star game where things start getting good, things start shaking out. But it's also the time where we start seeing a lot more injuries, like my entire fantasy baseball team. I apologize to any Phillies and Braves fans out there. I'm pretty sure I've gotten half your team injured. So my apologies. But if you're a non-Braves or non-Phillies fan, you're welcome.
You know what? That seems like a safe way to put it. It is all Kelsey's fault. That's what we'll roll with when it comes to baseball for now, when it comes to the injury report. But we got a lot of that to get into. We're going to be talking baseball. We're going to be talking basketball. We're going to be talking a little bit of everything. We're even going to be talking a little bit of NFL football. And we're going to be talking about Dallas, just not in the way most of you are thinking of. So I think that's as good as any way to get us into the first segment of the show. That is the tip off. And the tip off, of course, brought to you by SeatGeek. Use code Sports to get $20 off your first set of tickets for any sporting event, concert, anything that requires tickets. Save yourself $20 with code BELLYUPSPORTS. And we are heading to Dallas, but not in the way that you think to talk NFL is. We actually have the downside about this time of season. This is when people also tend to find themselves in not great positions. Is we're going to go to the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs and Rashee Rice once again find himself kind of on the wrong headlines, if you will. And the reason we bring up Dallas and not just to spite Kelcey, because while he was in Dallas is where this latest incident occurred, where it looks like he is once again in trouble, allegedly under investigation for assaulting a photographer at a nightclub in Dallas. Looks like they suspect him. It's to the point where there's even rumors that he could be released. Like his release could be imminent at this point as well, which talk about how the mighty have fallen. You were a leading receiver on the back-to-back Super Bowl champion. Per trajectory 90 degrees forward, we'd say. Like on that team, you're going to eat, basically. You're going to get everything's going your way. You have the incident with the car going too fast, car crash, all that. That's a whole nother issue as well. Everyone knows about that. We won't beat the dead horse already. But that is the reason I bring that up is because it leads me into if you have a arguably life-changing or altering incident like that, something that could change your life trajectory moving forward, it's still nothing. As far as I understand, he hasn't fully been charged with anything, or if he has, it's still going through the investigation, the pending, all that sort of thing. But if anything comes of that, your life changes. Normally, like you or me, if something happens to us, what's your first response going to be if you're in that situation? You will not hear or see from me until that is done. I am going to be a ghost. I am not going to put myself out there at all. And then not even a couple months later, you find you're in this position where you are assaulting a photographer at a nightclub in Dallas. If Jerry Jones's 1990s Cowboys have taught us anything, it's that nothing safe happens in Dallas, especially after 10 p.m. So that's what are you thinking? I make my own plenty of mistakes. Thou shalt not cast stones from a glass house. Well, I'm not really casting a stone from a glass house. I'm yelling at the broken glass on both of our houses. Like, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? At this point, you should be laying low, out of the limelight completely. Nowhere where anyone can see you, really. Go to training camp, go home, hang out with the friends, all that. But you should not be in this position when you already have one pending life-altering situation going on. So this flabbergasted me from that in the first place, let alone the fact that you get to a position where you allegedly might have needed to assault somebody. So this whole thing flabbergasted me. And you know what, Kansas City? Hollywood Brown signing looks really dang good right now. Trading up to get Xavier Worthy looks really damn good right now. Even though they're very different players, at least you got bodies at that receiver position as opposed to if they didn't bring in those guys per se. Then you'd be going out there with Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney, and well, we saw how that was kind of a little bit shaky. So, but I've ranted enough. It's your turn. I'm flabbergasted. Like the Rice feels. I don't know. I don't know what he was doing here. It's just I can't even think of words right now. I'm just flabbergasted.
This continues into the conversation, and we had a little bit of this conversation around the Henry Ruggs situation as well, where you get athletes sometimes who have, through all intents and purposes, gone through college in the good graces, if you will. There's been no negative aspects to anything. Then they get a lot of money, and this is his first offseason. He just got that Super Bowl bonus. That Super Bowl bonus is bigger than probably his entire contract was last year. That's a lot of money for somebody who's historically doesn't come out of a great situation. But you have to surround yourself with the right people. And that's always been the conversation with young athletes is how do you properly surround them with the best situation to get them to make it through whatever they're dealing with. The obvious case here is he's not alone in any of these situations. If you see the videos, if you see the pictures, he's never been alone. He always has his boys with him. And a lot of times, players have talked about this, especially retired players who were able to get themselves out of trouble or maybe had a little bit of a trouble initially in the league and then got themselves out of it. Chris Carter, for one of those examples, they flat out said, I had to cut off all ties with all the guys I grew up with. There was a couple I could keep around, but didn't keep them close. They weren't the guys I went out with every night because they were just enablers. They wanted to do things because I had the money and I could do this, I could do that. And knowing that as an athlete, you kind of have to be aware of what you're trying to do and what your job is to go and play football. Your job is to get paid a lot of money to be the best at your career. You cannot do anything to put that at risk. There are millions of kids out there in the United States that would kill to be in your position, literally and figuratively. But you're out here, you're out here doing I don't know what with I don't know who and not making the right decisions. And it's not like the league hasn't tried in the past to do something. The rookie symposium every year is supposed to be a first step. They're supposed to get them in touch with a veteran leader or a retired leader. And they do a great job with it. A lot of veterans, especially guys who have come through the same type of environment and made something out of themselves, have always said the same thing. Like, I'm always here if you need me. They give their phone numbers to these rookies. Not utilizing that, not utilizing the services, like the entire speeding thing could have been dealt with because, there's a driving service that is offered to every NFL player. If in case anybody doesn't know that, the NFL and teams specifically will pay for any sort of drive you need, any sort of ride you need on a private black car service. So think Uber Black on steroids. So absolutely private. Nobody knows who you are. Big giant Escalade rolls up, picks you up, takes you to where you need to go. You could be drinking. You could have fun. You could be doing whatever you want to in the off season. But there's a lot of question marks. And it's not necessarily they weren't character question marks. You can't blame the Chiefs for this situation because there were no character question marks with Rashee Rice coming into the league. Not really. Small, stupid things that every kid deals with, going through college. But there wasn't anything.
Not like this.
Yeah, there wasn't a red flag there. And yes, some situations could be misconstrued. The problem is these aren't necessarily situations that can be misconstrued because they're on tape. I don't know what else to say other than Chiefs fans, you got the best out of them for a year. We'll see what happens there going forward. But great job signing Hollywood Brown. Great job drafting one of the best receivers in the draft. And Patty's going to continue to go with or without. And at the end of the day, I think this is kind of the Chiefs' mantra is they'll bring in these rookies, especially receivers. Look at Marquez Valdes-Scantling, not a rookie, but brought in a receiver. He served his purpose. The train keeps moving with or without him. It doesn't matter for the Chiefs what this means. It sucks because there were a lot of high hopes for what Rashee Rice could do. But you made your bed, now you got to lie in it at the end of the day. And so you always hate it because there's a lot of talent there, but talent doesn't make up for mistakes in character. Like everybody can be a good person every day. You just have to make that conscious decision to do so.
and before we leap out of here as well, too, I do want to say he is officially from the car crash incident is facing 8 charges, all of which are considered felonies. So under that same situation, I still we all make our own mistakes, but if you already make something like that, the last thing you want to do is be going out in a public forum. And like you mentioned, you're probably not alone. Have one of your other friends punch the photographer in the face. The headline being one of your friends punches photographer is not nearly as bad as you assault somebody.
Rasheed Rice's entourage gangs up on photographer. Rasheed
Still
Rice
bad.
not involved. Oh,
Still
that's
bad, but could be much worse.
don't
It's
hang
not as
out with
bad as it
those
is now.
guys. Yeah, Rasheed, don't hang out with those guys in the future. Okay, go hang out with those guys in the off season. Okay, Uh, don't be caught around cameras with these guys. Okay, versus felonies, versus life changing decisions, and not in a good life changing way. These are rough, and we are not even talking about on this show the entire gun situation that's included in the car situation that brings in even more levels of problems. Because as an NFL player, as we've seen with John Morant, that's already another issue. Because not only did you just hurt yourself from a felony standpoint, you hurt yourself from a PR and imaging standpoint. And we've seen what that happens with Martavis Bryant, who just got released from the Cowboys for same issue, for very similar, not necessarily the guns and all this rest of the stuff, but for character flaws and PR issues. He can't be kept on a team in the NFL. So with Rasheed Rice, you just question a lot of what's involved there and decision maker. Yeah. So I don't know, man. This is I hate seeing young kids do this, but yeah.
Underrated comment too. That I think is a good way to round out the subject. I never thought I would dislike Rice until now, coming from our good friend Nate, and that is a very underratedly funny joke. If you know it or have met Nate, or if you watch NFL draft special with Nate, I got that joke, and I saw what you did there. That was slick. I got you there, but that's gonna do it here for talking about Rasheed Rice. So we're gonna liven things up a little bit. And what better way to do that? We kind of got our rants out of the way. What else do we do here on High Low Sports? We like rants, but we also really like rankings. And baseball is roughly 2 months into the season now, give or take. We've got a chance to see a little bit about what some of these teams are. As you mentioned earlier, heading into the dog days of summer, close to that all-star break, we start to see teams kind of take shape, if you will. Like the opening little surge that some teams get is gone, and they started to plateau off. And the good teams that were rough at the start, we usually see them start to balance out a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the MLB as a whole, and we're going to rank our top 5 teams at this point in the second week of May. So we're going to go back and forth from 5 to 1. We're going to go ahead and rank our teams. I will go ahead and kick us off. I'm going to start at number 5, and I'm going to go with Kelcey's local Cleveland Guardians at number 5. They are one of the better records in the MLB right now. And for the record, everyone, this is not just us recapping the standings. This is also our opinion looking into it as well, too. So it's not just a rehash of the standings. But Guardians, you're third in as far as strike is in getting strikeouts. Like pitching wise, you're third in strikeouts. You strike the batters out. And you're sixth in getting struck out as far as you get struck out the 6th few. So you get on base and you strike the other batters out. And you're 7th in steals. They're not very high necessarily on hits or home runs. Like they're not power hitters by any means, but they get on base and they find a way to score. And when they do score, they can avalanche score with the best of them. It's the Tom Brady's Patriots offense. They will dink and dunk you to death, and you can't stop it. And when they get going, they can do a lot of the same thing. So, and defensively, they are mostly pretty sound with underratedly, surprisingly decent pitching, considering they lost Shane Bieber after one outstanding game and an inning or whatever it was. So we're gonna go with the Guardians at number 5, right? I think they've had a very good start to the season, have carried forward through the most part too. It hasn't been a roller coaster ride as much like it was last year per se as well. I think they've done a good job plateauing it out here. So we're gonna go Guardians at number 5.
I like it. I like it. They were a consideration for my list. But the injury to Stephen Kwan, who has been yet again an unsung part of their offense and especially their defense. He's a high quality defender.
I think
Him
leading
going
in
down with
batting
that,
average too.
yeah, I mean him going down with that hamstring injuries sucks because that's potentially 4 to 6 weeks, and it's unfortunate. So basically, if anybody doesn't know, he strained his hamstring, or an acute strain of his hamstring. So essentially, there was a pull but no pop. So which
Basically, if we did this in a week, I might have to change my number 5. But as of right now, I could stick him in at 5.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, I like your number 5. I definitely like your number 5 for sure. So I'm gonna go with my number 5, and I'm gonna stay in the NL here. I am actually gonna go to the AL East though, and I might get some flack for this considering I'm in Cleveland. Um, but I'm going to the New York Yankees. Number 3 in wins, number 2 in RBIs. Um, yeah, I mean a good team. Sorry, number 2 in was or number 1 in saves. Like pitching wise, they're a quality team. Just hitting, you're just sitting there wondering. Sorry, it's number 2 in ERA, not RBI. Flip side of that. So number 2 in ERA. But pitching wise, they're top tier team, first in the East, 24-13 on the season. It's hard to look at that and be like, that's not a good team. No, that's a pretty good team. And any team that's first in their division for the most part are pretty good this year. And with them, sorry, I guess they're technically second in the no, they're first in the NL East. They're tied for first in the NL East or AL East. So yeah, I'm gonna give them 5. We'll talk about who they're tied with here in a minute.
Wow, that we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on my number 4 because my number 4 is the New York Yankees. A lot of the same reasons you mentioned. Second in hits and ERA, they're fourth in home runs, so they're still cranking it out with the best in which we expected with Juan Soto and Aaron Judge.
They're
Second in,
third now, by the way, in home runs, tied with the A's.
all right, so they climbed it up a little bit. So second in getting walked as well too. So they are getting people on base because nobody wants Aaron Judge to crank it 700 feet out of the park. And on top of that, we talked about in our predictions, our biggest concern was what was their pitching going to be like, especially if Garrett Cole was injured like we saw. So far, that has not been an issue at all. They have managed, like they've been incredibly effective on the mound. I think that's what's been different. So I'm gonna go with the Yankees at number 4. I think that's a very underratedly good team. I thought that in the offseason, like, we'll have Juan Soto, that'll cover up all of our deficiencies. It really didn't because they had pitching deficiencies, but somehow their pitching took another step. It's like they knew something we didn't know. So, hats off to the Pinstripes for now. They will take the number 4 spot in my rankings.
I like it. I like that one for sure. Obviously, they were my 5, so
Close enough.
yeah. But my number 4, I'm gonna go to the other East, the NL East. We're just in the AL. We're gonna go to the NL East here, and I'm going with those stubborn Atlanta Braves. Talking about a team that is 4th in batting average right now. No other top 5 statistics in the team lead category. They've also been injured at the beginning of the season, but to be injured and still be in contention, now they're 2.5 games back in the East. They're in the NL, but that doesn't mean they're not a good team. You lose Spencer Strider, and you still are that good. Just think about that. That's incredible to think about. And now Ozzy Albies is back, and their entire offense is starting to get going. So I'm gonna have the Braves here in the 4 spot. I guess hitting clean up for me, if you will. But yeah, good team. Just not totally healthy all at the beginning of the year. Otherwise, they probably could be higher.
I like that you went to the NL East next because that makes my job really easier because I don't have to go much further as I'm also in the NL East, but I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Phillies at number 3 right now. Right now, technically leading that division with the record as well, but we know about the firepower with Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, Schwarber, and all those guys. But what's surprising to me is how good their pitching has been as a whole on the season. They're 7th in runs allowed, so they're not giving up a whole lot of runs. Strikeouts, they actually lead the MLB at the time of checking the stats with 360. So they have the most strikeouts at the time of the recording, too. Whip average, all the numbers, they are really good at pitching, and we know how good they are at hitting, too. Like, that's like the least surprising of it all is okay, the Phillies are good at hitting. In they're 4th in getting walked too. So they're with the guys they have, they're gonna get on base, 5th in home runs, batting average is high, hits are high, 4th in hits. So I'm gonna go with the Philadelphia Phillies. What a terrible name. For the Phillies at number 3. So because I think very similar to the Braves, but they've been healthier, and I think they've been able to keep a little bit of momentum. So I'm gonna give the Phillies the slight nod over the Braves, and I'm gonna have them as my 3 spot.
No surprise, the Phillies are my number 3. I don't know if I need to spend much time. I'm just going to run down where they're at in the top 5s here for team rankings. 3rd in batting average, 5th in home runs, 3rd in RBIs, 5th in stolen bases. That's just hitting. 1st in wins, 4th in ERA, as you mentioned, number 1 in strikeouts, and tied 1st in quality starts, which is an underrated category for me, especially who's a fantasy baseball player or fantasy baseball guys out there or gals. That quality starts get you a lot of extra bonus points if your league is smart. So, yeah, definitely recommend getting some Phillies starters there. Big injury, though, Trey Turner going down. We'll see how impactful that is. Granted, Bryson Stott just came into play for him, and the Phillies in what is Phillies? I hate saying that word every time, by the way. But what is in the Philadelphia mantra? next man up, but they kind of now are making fun of Trey Turner every time Bryson Stott makes a play. So very
Mm.
unique situation there. But yeah, so Phillies for me also number 3.
All right, well, it was bound to happen. We'd have at least one of these teams in the exact same spot. So we're gonna head now to number 2 for me, and we're going back to the East in the AL, and I'm gonna go with the Orioles for number 2 overall. They lead in home runs as of right now after getting a couple more today. They were tied to start the day, and now they officially lead. 7th in ERA pitching, second fewest hits allowed. So they are getting it done on the mound and hitting the ball. They've been incredibly effective going yard with the best of them. As I mentioned, leading in home runs, top 5th in RBIs as well, hits, they're right up there as well. So they've been very, very good, even if they haven't quite been as quite as freaky as we thought. But I think part of that's because of how good the Yankees have surprisingly been. Like the AL East has been a little bit better than I think we thought, at least the rest of the AL East. Even the Red Sox have had their moments. So I'm gonna put the Orioles at number 2. I think that they have a strong case for number 1. You lead in home runs and you're second in the fewest hits given up. That's a recipe that wins more often than not.
Yeah, yeah, that works for
Hmm,
me.
hmm.
Um, I have nothing to say against that at all, other than they are not my number 2 team. Um, my number 2 team goes to the opposite side of the continent, and I'm going with the LA Dodgers. Um, the other team that is exceptionally well, but on the NL side, and I imagine if I had to guess, I'm going to say this is probably your number 1 team. So I'm sorry for spoiling this one, but you're talking about a team offensively that is number 1 in batting average, number 2 in home runs, number 1 in RBIs, and number 1 in hits. By the way, the batting average part of that, the top 2 guys in batting average in the NL both play for the Dodgers. The top guy in stolen bases, top 2 guys in stolen bases also both play for the Dodgers. The top 2 guys in home runs play for the Dodgers. Getting a theme here.
Hmm.
But that's not where they stop at. They're number 2 in wins overall behind the Phillies. They're number 5 in saves, so they're shutting down games that they actually are leading, which is huge. And as I just mentioned, quality starts. I'm a big fan of quality starts. Number 4 in quality starts. So yeah, Dodgers are exceptional team, but I think there's going to be a cap to what they can do. So that's why they're number 2 right now on this list for me. Don't get me wrong. Maybe I'm docking them because of bias as a Giants fan. And also they spent $1 billion on 4 players this offseason. Still stupid.
Hmm.
Anyways, yeah, so they're my number 2 team. God,
Well,
I'm
you
getting
did well, you did spoil it a little bit, but I'll just go into it anyway. I have them at number 1. They're the best offensive team in baseball. All numbers support that, as you mentioned too. Lead 2nd now in home runs, but they also lead in RBIs, hits, everything you mentioned. And then on the pitching side of it, they've been surprisingly good too. They're 4th in ERA pitching. They're 3rd in saves, like strikeouts. They're in the top 5, or sorry, they're at 7 now in strikeouts. They just do everything well. And when you could score like they can, it makes everything easier. Like there's nothing they can't do offensively necessarily. Even with I know there's a lot of talk about how valuable Shohei be if when he's not he's not a pitcher and a hitter, when he's just a hitter. Well, he leads the league in home runs. Oh, and by the way, 3rd in home runs is also on the Dodgers too. That lineup is absolutely ridiculous. That's the best offense in baseball as of right now. So yeah, I have the Dodgers at 1 for all those reasons. Opposite side of the continent as who your number 1 team will be. So we're gonna go with the Dodgers at 1, and I think we got a hunch who your number 1 is. So I think we got a lot of the same teams, just with a little flip flop dippity dop of the order.
Oh, you know what? I didn't realize. So I was wrong. By the way, it is only the top 2 or 2 out of the top 3 home run hitters in the NL are on the Dodgers. My bad. Definitely
Either
thought
way, that's a lot of firepower, no matter what way you slice it.
yeah, I forgot Mookie was not up there still.
Hmm.
Anyways, yeah, so for me, my number 1, Orioles. Now granted, yes, everything we just rattled off for the Dodgers. Yes. But no, because it's the Dodgers. So Orioles for me, the big reason why I'm giving them here is the ERA, top 5 ERA, and the Dodgers not a top 5 ERA team. So you don't have to hit a whole lot of home runs, or you don't have to score a lot of runs, despite the fact they are top 5 in both categories, 1 in one and 4 in the other. Despite that, you don't have to do that because your team isn't giving up very many runs, or at least not earned runs, and that's huge, especially when you consider where the Orioles were 3 years ago. Talking about a poverty franchise 3 years ago. Are
A
they ever going to be
dumpster.
good? Yeah. I guess I shouldn't say 3. I guess we're pre-COVID situation. Awful team. Now you have 2 of the best young players in the game, And then you have like 3 more guys that aren't even talked about anymore. Cedric Mullins being one of them. Why does nobody talk about Cedric Mullins? He's a fantastic fantasy baseball player. I don't know why nobody's talking about him, but yeah. So for me, the Orioles, I'm going to put them there at number 1 for me because they're in a tougher division with the Yankees in the East. I'm sorry, like that's not again kind of the reverse of the Dodgers, where the Dodgers spent $1 billion. The Orioles are just like, we're going to grow our team from the bottom and work our way up. And you see the difference in contract and in ability. So I'm going to say the Orioles for me are the number 1 team. Just personally, that's my reasoning.
And by the way, you have arguably number 1 prospect Jackson Holiday that you managed to bring up as well too. So it's not so you oh, just on top of it, just add a little bit to it. So when you were in that dumpster for so long, you managed to stockpile a lot of quality prospects, and now you're getting to reap what you sown, and they're doing as well as anyone. This as much as I think both of us would kind of hate to see the Dodgers there in the World Series, that would be an awesome matchup to see the Dodgers and the Orioles in the World Series. But if history's taught us, one of them will choke and we'll get something goofy or something like
I
that.
need to go back and check my preseason predictions because I know I had the Orioles in a World Series. I don't think I had the Dodgers in the World Series.
You had the Braves, 'cause
Ah,
I had the Phillies. So I mean, we both, it's not over for us yet, but we'll have to wait and see. And at the same time, you would probably get pretty annoyed seeing the Dodgers in the World Series. So maybe it's better if it doesn't happen.
that's fair. That's fair.
But either way, be sure to let us know, everyone, down in the comment section below, who you think are the top 5 teams in the MLB and which teams of ours you would take out or move around if you were us. But that's going to wrap it up here for the tip off, which is going to take us now into Kelcey's second favorite part of every show. And that is, of course, the main event. And for the main event, we are going to, unironically, from the tip off, we're going to head to the hardwood because we got some NBA playoffs action underway. It is the second round. Every single matchup has played at least one game. Some of it played 2. And there's a lot kind of some interesting things taking place here. So we'll go ahead and start with the defending champs. Boy, oh boy, did they get dipped in some not so sweet, but a whole lot of sour sauce after that last game. That did not go very well for them. So wow, what the Timberwolves did to them in that game too, without Rudy Gobert as well. That was a Rudy Gobert-less team that Jamal Murray was so frustrated, he was throwing things at the referee like a heating pad and a towel. Jokic, wow, considering a guy who's lauded for his efficiency and his advanced stats, he looked completely lost. He was defensively, he looked like Luka from 3 years ago or James Harden from 4 years ago. He looked like a cone. The amount of times people ran directly at him. Karl Anthony Towns, if he plays like that every night, the Timberwolves will not lose a game the rest of the way. For that inside out game was fantastic from him, and defensively he was in the way. Alexander Walker, Naz Reid, and we already know Ant Edwards. I mean, like that's arguably MVP of the playoffs right now, if not top 2. And for some people, MVP of the regular season. Jokic, by the way, named MVP today for his 3rd time. And well, they're going to need that MVP performance if they want to climb out of this hole because they're going to Minnesota now with Jamal Murray completely out of whack. That team is mentally imploding. Mike Malone, well, we saw him trying to get ejected by getting in that referee's face in that game too. How he didn't get ejected is honestly amazing. Like you see in baseball, that guy gets suspended for a month. In the NFL, that guy gets suspended for a year. But I'm gonna let you guys have ranted enough about it. Are the Nuggets dipped? Is it over for them, or do you think there's a chance they can come back and put down the Wolves?
That is the worst first game I've seen from a defending champion in my life. No matter what playoff series we're talking about here, this was just awful. Whether that be first round, second round, anything like this was atrocious. Nikola Jokic looked like he did as a rookie. He looked like the 36th pick in the NBA draft. Whatever pick he was, I believe it was
42, something like that. Like a point, not good.
42, somewhere in that range. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Gets a double-double. Yusuf Nurkic, who was the previous center for the Nuggets, could have gotten that double-double. Probably would have done a lot better guarding Naz Reid and Karl Anthony Towns, which is not ever something I thought I would say legitimately serious about Cat in the paint. But Cat in the paint was dominant. Cat outside was dominant. And when you have him playing dominant ball, that opens up everything for Anthony Edwards. And we saw Ant look like the guy who I call MVP for the regular season. And yes, I swallowed my pride here, and I called Ant the MVP for the regular season. If you don't believe me, go back. I think it was 3 episodes ago where we talked about our NBA awards for the regular season, and that's who I think was the number one guy. But who else was on that list? Do you remember? That's right. Nas Reed was on that list, I believe, for sixth man of the year.
Multiple.
And yeah, 5 boards, absolutely, crucial when going up against Jokic in this game. Between him and as much crap as we give to everybody else on this team defensively, he did well. Obviously, Luka Garza, by the way, came in and played quality minutes against Jokic, which is what?
It's
Luka
about
Garza?
time. So it's
Yeah.
about time he gets on the court.
Former Naismith Award winner, gave you 2 points and an assist. So not too bad. But yeah, I think this game started and ended with Cat just taking on his shoulders and being like, this is going to be my game. I'm going to dominate the 3-time MVP. And he did. And I don't think there's a question about how good he was. I think the plan here for the Wolves worked to perfection, which is we're going to let Jokic get his. Nobody else is getting theirs. And while Jokic is trying to get everybody else involved, he's not going to be looking at the basket, which has always been one of the complaints about Jokic. The only way to really slow him down is when you shut down everybody else on the team and make him shoot these arcing jumpers with 1 second left on the clock that go in every time. He gets frustrated because he wants to pass the ball. He loves passing the ball and getting his teammates involved because he knows that makes his life easier. And as a big man, you want nothing more than to make your life easier because when your team's in front, the other team runs less, so you don't have to worry about playing as much defense because you're just like, all right, well, they're going to get down into a half court and I can just chill. And that didn't happen because with Karl Anthony Towns and Edwards going off the way they did, absolutely dominant. And by the way, Ant giving you 7 assists. That's a huge part of his game that I think has been underrated this year. So yeah, I to answer the initial question, do I think the Nuggets are dipped? Yeah, you might want to get the Szechuan sauce out because this is getting bad.
This has all the makings for a gentleman's sweep at this point. I think they'll find a way to pull one of these out just to avoid the sweep, but it's not looking good at this point. And I want to add on to it as well. What's really interesting about the Timberwolves that really flustered him in that game too. You obviously didn't have Rudy Gobert, so your 7 foot tall center fielder basically sitting in the paint that takes away the lobs to Aaron Gordon when Jokic gets in the paint. He takes away Jokic in the paint. He adds help defense. They didn't have that, and you held them to like 30% from the field as a team. Michael Porter Jr. went from a laser beam with Death Star accuracy to meh.
A stormtrooper with stormtrooper accuracy.
Perfect analogy, exactly. And Jamal Murray, my goodness, like that was his worst. Those last 2 games are probably the worst 2 games I've seen him play, especially in the playoffs, where he just seems to come alive.
You know what? It reminds me of what he was at 2 years ago, I believe, early in the playoffs, where it was just awful from him.
I think we'd have to go back a little bit further because he was out for a couple of those years with the ACL injury. So we're going back.
He came back 1 year after one of the ACLs, and it was just awful. I believe it was after the COVID ACL, and it was garbage. He was hot garbage. Like he gave you maybe 5 assists. It was when we were still doing the shows on Colorcast. That was a while ago. It feels like. But no, I will also say that while Rudy Gobert was out, I've complained about the Wolves using Rudy Gobert a lot. I complained about their 3 big man system. I know Cat doesn't necessarily take the onus to play as a big man, but when Rudy Gobert's not there, it does put the onus on Cat to go be dominant down low, and you see how good he can be when he does that. So I think really taking Rudy Gobert out actually made it so it put Cat under the pressure of which he does well under. He did well at Kentucky under of being that guy down low, and I think that's the best Cat you can get. And again, when you don't have Rudy Gobert down there, Ant can feast as well because you have Cat in a pick and pop situation instead of a guaranteed pick and roll every single time, which means the man actually has to play up on the roll or on the pick option. So you don't have a lot of options. Like you have a lot more options for Ant, but you don't have a lot of options defensively. You have to actually play both men in that situation. And with Rudy Gobert, you don't have to play him out on the 3-point line. You literally can just sag off and sit in the paint and not let Ant go to the paint. Granted, he'll probably still dunk over you, but at the very least, you don't have to worry about it as much. So while Gobert's out, I'm not necessarily thinking it's a bad thing for the Wolves, and I will stand by that. And for eternity, I think I'll continue to stand by that.
I'm looking forward to seeing what in game 3 if he comes back. Because you can make adjustments the last game, but that's a big defensive factor in the middle of the court that put you in that situation that wasn't there. So how do you adjust the last game when there was such a bit defensively? Obviously, offensively, you're right. His offense is offensive rebound and dunk sometimes. Like, but defensively is what I'm thinking for Jokic and Aaron
40
Gordon.
46-point difference is how they adjusted defensively. So less than 82 points in a game. 80 points on the dot. They gave the Nuggets 20 points a quarter in the NBA in today's NBA. That's crazy. I haven't seen those since Thibodeau's Bulls. Like,
And if you're the Nuggets, how do you adjust to that? Like, you can't be like, oh, we'll adjust to last game because that big factor was missing. Like, you can't even be like, we'll adjust off our issues last game because those issues won't work now. Wait, they didn't work that they might be dipped. I don't want to say it's a sweep, but it's feeling gentlemanly. Like, break out the top hat and the mustache twirling. It's gentlemanly.
I'm going to be honest. I think if Gobert comes back and plays in game 2, which he's supposed to,
Game 3.
sorry, game 3, my bad. I think the Nuggets can win with Gobert on the court. I really think that comes down to the way Gobert plays defense, and it also allows Jokic, who is already not really a great defender. He's an average NBA defender, which is not exceptional, not bad, but very much a guy that sits in the paint like Rudy Gobert, and just picks up rebounds, especially long rebounds, and outlets them out. It allows him to sit in the paint. And I think, I mean, I'll be honest. I think if I'm the Wolves, I look at what I just did without Gobert. I'm going to be like, sit on the bench, kid. We don't need you this series. Like, you don't have to play a guy just because they're there, just because they've been playing all season long. It's the playoffs. It's one of the best things that Phil Jackson ever did. One of the best things that insert great coach here. Jerry Sloan was fantastic about this. He would rotate the 4th and 5th guy in and out of the lineup based off of their matchup they had against that team in the series. The only reason that ever didn't work was because they went up against MJ and Pippen and the super team that is the Bulls. Like, yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna be honest. If Gobert comes in and plays consistent minutes, like 20 plus minutes going forward, I'm not gonna doubt the Nuggets get there. But if he doesn't, I mean, I don't know if the Nuggets have a chance.
The benefit of having him around is Cat likes to get in foul trouble because he gets a little bit handsy sometimes. So that at least gives you that body there. He didn't do it game 2, but we've seen the rest of his playoffs. He gets a little bit handsy. The last thing I'll kind of end with this one on, so we do have a few other series to jump in on, is if the Nuggets are going to not get dipped, if they're not undip themselves, I'm going to really play off the slower third. Jokic has to put his hands up and move his feet defensively. You can't watch Anthony Edwards run by you. It can't be a layup line. It can't let him, Mike Conley, you can't let people run by you. You can't just aggressively swipe, miss the ball, and watch someone go up. You can't let Cat just walk by you. You got to put your hands up and move your feet.
On the flip side, I'll say this: the guy guarding Ant needs to know that Jokic is not that type of defender that is able to get his feet in front of somebody that's as quick and explosive as Ant, and you need to play the angles and make sure you get around Jokic to a spot and start taking charges. And while Jamal Murray was flustered, Reggie Jackson had no chance. They need to start playing defense, and neither one of those guys is an A+ defender there either. So you start to wonder how this is going to work if you are making Jokic guard at the 3-point line.
Oh, I'm sorry. I might have misworded that. I just meant in the paint when he's the help.
Oh, I mean, no, in general, yeah. Like,
I just need him to do this. Like, he wasn't even doing this in game 2. Stick your hands up and be 7 feet.
And again,
you look like fat Jokic again.
It needs to be down to a team defense effort. And Mike Malone's fantastic. Let me be clear about this on the other side of things. Mike Malone is fantastic at making adjustments. I think he can come up with something. I just don't know if this team is built to defensively do what he wants to do or what he needs to do to stop somebody as explosive as Ant. If Cat is playing as well, and maybe that's the answer, is shut down Cat, and then you get an answer for the Nuggets to win. Maybe that's what they need to do: is shut down Cat, shut down Naz Reid, and then focus on and let Ant get his. Let Ant go off for 50, but Cat's going to give you 12. Naz Reid's going to give you 7. Like, okay.
Just saying, you're 7 feet tall. I just need you to put your arms in the air. 3-time MVP, just put your hands in there. If he's going to shoot over you, it's fine. But that last game, you didn't even put your hands in the air.
Honestly, don't even jump, though, because you lose inches when you jump.
I don't want him to jump. I don't even need him. I just need him to put his hands in the air. Like, wait, I don't need him aggressively swiping at air as the Mike Conley and all of them walk by him. Alexander Walker, like that was rough. And if that was LeBron or Luka or anyone else like that, we'd be roasting. Yeah. If it was James Harden,
diaper on him. That way, put the boxing diaper on him, so when he gets that knee to the crotch, he doesn't actually go down.
There we go. We got something there. Well, Draymond's not playing, so we might be safe there. But we spent a lot of time here on the Nuggets. We do got a few other series to get into. We're going to stick in the West, though. We're going to go to the Young Guns taking on, speaking of Luka Doncic, and Kyrie Irving as the Mavs taking on the Thunder, who have yet to lose a game in the playoffs. They are now 5-0. And weirdly enough, that was a very underratedly good defensive game one against the Mavericks. They kept Luka under 30. I think they kept him to 19. Kyrie did what Kyrie does in that 20 to 27 point range. Really good. Obviously, he's Kyrie. They mitigated everybody else as far as like 3-point shots go. Luka's obviously a little banged up, but you're out there. They held him to what was it, like 20% shooting, something ridiculous from three. And then offensively, we already know how good they are. Shea Gilchrist-Alexander, arguably one of the top 3 scorers in the game right now. Chet Holmgren, the worst thing Chet has ever done in his life was unfortunately get hurt, so he didn't get to have his flowers because he unfortunately gets to be a rookie next to Victor Wembanyama, who's an absolute alien, where Chet's probably like 87% of that. Problem is, it's not quite that good. Better shooter, but we know what Victor does. He's not human. And then we know Dort. That entire team is just a well-oiled machine. Everyone knows the role, has a role, thrives in that role. The youngest team by far in the NBA playoffs. I think they're an average of 24 and a half years old. If they got to the finals, they'd be the youngest team to win the finals since, I think, ever. If not, the closest would be like the Magic and Kareem Lakers in 1980. How long ago it's been. I think I saw the stat for. So do the Thunder pull it off on the Mavericks? Do you think they win the series and at least go to the Western Conference Finals? Or do you have a little bit of faith in your boy Luka and Kyrie to weather the storm? It's just a game one.
I think the Mavericks are going to figure it out. I do, but I do think it's a lot scarier if the role players for the Thunder continue going and playing as they did. And when I say role players, I'm not talking like the Jalen Williams, Shea Gilgeous, and Chet Holmgren role players. No, I mean like Aaron Wiggins from Maryland playing well. The other Jalen Williams giving you double digits, giving you 11 and 9. I think this is a tough team to match up to when all cylinders are firing. All 9 that really get on the court consistently are giving you close to double digits or more, at least in some category. And when they're doing that, it's a tough team to beat. But when the Mavericks come to play, well, they're a tough out. You just look at it. Kyrie just gave you 20. Didn't really give you many assists. He only gave you 3 assists. Luka was the assist guy this game. He was 9 assists, 6 rebounds, but only 19 points. Can you guarantee Luka's not going to score 25 next game? Probably not.
I'd clock him in for 30 next game. If I'm a betting guy, I'm going to clock him in for 30. If nothing else, just the volume to get to 30.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's very true. Also, kind of underrated part of this, PJ Washington, only 10 points there, only 6 boards, getting kept off the boards against that long and skinny team that is the Thunder. Very shocking there. And I think there's an opportunity for the Mavericks as long as they figure out their offense. And this has maybe been the one issue with the Mavericks all season long is their defense. But their offense it's like kind of like Alabama basketball we just saw in the tournament, like top 2 defense or top 2 offense, bottom 30 defense. It's struggle defensively for them, but offensively when they're rolling, they're rolling. You also just worry about the shooting percentage from 3. Sometimes Luka gets in those bad habits like Trae Young and just kind of jacks him up because he needs to try to get something going. And while he's not necessarily a volume shooter, he does do better when he does shoot more shots. And I think that's kind of known, but I'm going to say the Thunder win this series. I'm going to just say it, but at the same time, I think the Mavericks figure it out. I don't think it's going to be a sweep by any means. I think it's going to go like 6 or 7, but I think the Thunder pull it out just because naivety and long and athletic seem to win the game nowadays.
Absolutely. I'm in agreement. I wouldn't go. I'm worried about Luka because the whole playoffs he hasn't been very efficient. He's been high volume. Even those Clippers wins when he went ballistic, it's because he put up a lot of shots and you start like 1 of 4 or 1 of 6, and then next thing you know, you're like 6 of 12. Like you get it going. It just against the Thunder, I think that's a little worrisome. And the Thunder they feel like they're built to beat the teams like them, the Lakers, pretty much everyone else besides one of the other 2 teams they'll be playing in the next round, with the potentially Nuggets with a big body like Jokic, Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter, or the Timberwolves who are all like 6'10", and then Anthony Edwards who can jump out of the building. Because the one thing the Thunder really lack is they have no girth on that team. Like Chet Holmgren is your big guy, and he has the circumference of my bicep. That's not going to work when you have Naz Reid, Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, and those boys in there. So I think that they're just built to beat a lot of these teams. The one thing they're missing is a little bit of diameter, but that's not an issue you're going to have with the Mavericks. So I'm going to take the Thunder as well. I'm going to take them in 6. I think Luke and Kyrie will get you at least 1. Then there'll be one game where the naivety causes them a loss. The naivety gives them wins. Sometimes they'll give them a loss. So we'll take the Thunder heading into the conference finals with a playoff record of 8-2 at that point for these guys, if it goes 6 games. So what a wild start for these young kids getting to that conference finals. But speaking of a potential conference finals team, we're going to head over to the East really quick. And our former intern, Max, those of you who've been around for a while, they know Max. His boy, Jalen Brunson, is helping lead the Knicks on an absolute berserker New Yorker for unstoppable pace, taking on the Pacers. No pun intended there. After winning a ridiculous game 1 where Brunson went from over 40. Kelcey's boy, Tyrese Halliburton, though. He's a star in the making and a legit awesome player, but he has not had he has been very rough for him since he came back from the injury. He only had 6 points on 6 shots in that first game, too. I think he had 4 turnovers in the second half on top of it. In my opinion, he's got to get it going. I know he's banged up, but you're out there. They need you. If you're not going to score the ball, you have to get like 12, 13, 14 assists. There was too many times where he's just kind of sitting off, like the offense is not running through him at all. And I think he's too good of a player, and your team is built too much around him and Pascal Siakam leading the way. So they've gotten this far despite it. They beat the Bucks despite him being very up and down because that Bucks team was a mess. Now that we look at it, in hindsight, the team was a trash show. And it was a competitive game 1. But you're not stopping Jalen Brunson. Like, at this point, nobody's stopping him, it feels like. And if you do stop him, he does that weird little thing where he gets by you, then leans into you and gets a foul. It's almost annoying to watch. I'm tired of these left-handed 2 guards and point guards getting fouled relentlessly. James Harden, Jalen Brunson, and their J names.
The difference is at least Jalen's are actual fouls. James Harden flopped his way to everything.
Most of them are fouls. Most of them are fouls. He's not on the Harden level, but the amount of times he just gets behind and then he'll uppercut somebody and they'll call a foul.
Oh, yeah.
Wait a minute. Hold on now. Just because you're 5'10" doesn't mean you can get away with that. But I digress because this is the Jalen Brunson stand account nonetheless.
Yeah.
Good.
They're playing right now, by the way, game 2. And right now the Pacers are up. You mentioned Halliburton. He is having himself, it's about halftime right now. And he's actually having a pretty good game. But OG Anunoby on the other side is stepping up. And I think this is what makes Jalen Brunson so good, is he doesn't necessarily have to do it every night by himself. He will, but
he likes to, but he doesn't have to.
Yeah. He'll either be the most dominant point guard you've ever seen, or he'll be the most dominant point getting guard you'll ever see. And what I mean by that is he'll either get you buckets or he'll give his teammates buckets. And that's incredible. But I do think there's one piece of this conversation that needs to be mentioned, and that's Mitchell Robinson going down with that injury, down 4 to 6 weeks. Not a good injury to see, especially for the Knicks, who and Jalen Brunson, who in a lot of ways has feasted off of Mitchell Robinson being down low and giving second chance opportunities or a great screener, which is what Mitchell Robinson is. And that's an underrated part of today's game is when you have a great screener down low, your point guard can go eat whenever he wants to, or whoever has the ball can go eat whenever they want to. But yeah, you mentioned it. The Pacers, Tyrese Halliburton, Pascal Siakam, they need to step up. That team cannot keep going the way they're going without them because it's just not going to work. And you have to figure out a way to do it with the Knicks running on all cylinders when Anunoby gets involved. When you have Josh Hart giving you triple digits or triple, like 3 stats with near double digits, almost triple double. It's tough to go up against those Knicks. By the way, still doing this without Julius Randle. So
and they're gonna be doing it without Julius Randle for a minute too. So you know what? Maybe it's kind of like those things they unlock something when Jalen Brunson when he went out. But in my opinion, if the Pacers are going to win this series, you need Halliburton and Pascal Siakam to combined average about 45 points a game. I'd say combined. Like they could 15 and 25, something. They can fluctuate. It can go up and down. I know Halliburton's going to get those assists to balance it out. So that's why I kind of cut it 45. But I think they got to get something in that 45-50 range combined as an average.
And I need double digit rebounds from Siakam. I can't be getting 4 or 5 from Siakam. I need to get double digits, or at least minimum 8. Minimum 8.
I think 8 and you're taking some of those away from Josh Hart, who's averaging 13 at 6'4". Like you got to at least take some of them from him.
Thank you. Why is Josh Hart giving? This is the thing that people. He is the Doug Flutie of the NBA. where
He's
he will
Charles Barkley, but less round. He's just the rebound, not even
less
the
round
round mound.
he's the less round mound rebound. Like, God, I just never thought I'd use that phrase again for any current NBA player not named Zach Randolph. Like, this is just embarrassing. So yeah, the Knicks are really good, and as I said, Pacers up right now. Going it's about 6 minutes left of the second quarter, still up, but it's a 4-point game, 54-50. And I don't think they're going to get out of this one scot free because Jalen Brunson's yet to get going. So we'll see.
That being said, I have a hard time picking the Pacers to win this series, so I'm gonna take the Knicks. I think it's gonna be grueling 6 games. I think the Pacers will steal a couple. But I'll take the Knicks. I think they have the ability to play that Tom Thibodeau defense and grindhouse, but Josh Hart can shoot, DiVincenzo can shoot, and Anobi can shoot.
45 in game one.
Exactly. You got Jalen Brunson. Like I think they'll find a way to grind out because the Pacers are very much in that Alabama mold too. Like they are high pace, high action, but defensively they're a little spotty. They'll get their stops. They play defense, but they're not clamps necessarily. They're not like the Knicks or the Timberwolves. They're not clamps. They play defense as a means to an end to get the offense. They don't play defense to clamp.
They play defense because they have to. Like it's part of the game.
Basically.
Otherwise, they would probably all stand on the offensive side of the ball. Like somebody has to take the ball out. That's the only reason they play defense.
Exactly. So I'm going to take the Knicks. I'm going to give them in 6. I think it's going to be a interesting, grueling series though. And if the Pacers win tonight, I feel really good about 6. If they lose, it might be 5.
Yeah, I'm going to say 5 or 6. I think if the Pacers end up losing this, which I think they will, because right now I'm looking at the stat line. DiVincenzo only has 3 points. Jalen Brunson at 5. So unless they don't get going, which is hard to believe they wouldn't get going in the next 25 minutes of game time. If they don't get going for some reason, then okay, sure. Yeah, this is probably going to go 6 or 7. But otherwise, I think this is 5 or 6, and the Knicks easily win this one.
Which is going to take us to who they play in the Eastern Conference Championship. And we're not going to spend too much time on this one, but the graphic says it all. The Cavs had a good first half. Donovan Mitchell's awesome. Like they have their moments, but Celtics are just that good, especially in the East. So who's going to win more for Cleveland this week? The Cavaliers or the Guardians? And I'm going to lean towards the Guardians. I think the Cavs will get 1. I think somehow in Cleveland, Donovan Mitchell will get you 1. Maybe when they're down 3-0, he'll give you 40 or something like that. But it's not like I just don't think they have the personnel to match up with them. The Celtics are that good defensively; they're as sound as it gets. Derek White, it does not miss. He is what we joked about with Michael Porter Jr. He makes every single shot. Jason Tatum hasn't even got going in the playoffs yet. Like he's been just kind of cruising lower percentage. And they're on top of that too. Darius Garland has had a rough playoffs, and he has not looked good this playoffs. His shooting percentages are low. He's missing shots. He's getting in foul trouble. Evan Mobley's good, but he's not quite the Evan Mobley we hoped for after that rookie year and even that second year where he is arguably defensive player of the year. He's kind of plateaued off the last couple of years. Jared Allen's been hurt. Your boy Isaac Okoro was arguably their best offensive player in the first half, or at least the first quarter of the last game. And then as much as we like Isaac Okoro around here, that's not his role. You don't want him being your offense by any means.
He's the third option, maybe 4th.
At best. Like even on a good day. Like and then the rest of your shooters.
A fourth option. Say 4th option.
And then all your shooters, Max Strus and all those other guys, they're just not shooting very well. So I'm going to say the Celtics, they're going to win this game. The Cavs will get 1. They will find a way to get 1, probably in game 4 when they're facing a sweep. Somehow Donovan Mitchell will go off. Darius Garland will find a shot. Evan Mobley will give you a double-double. So Guardians win more this week. Celtics are heading to the Eastern Conference Finals. So.
Yeah. Honestly, if I picked any 2 games this week for the Guardians just to match the 2 games that the Cavs are going to play this week, I'm still picking the Guardians. It's tough. In the 5 games that the Celtics have won in the playoffs so far, they've won all of them by more or 20 or more points. A couple of them were 20 on the dot, and that includes the Heat in 4 games. All those games were 20 plus, and then now the first game against the Cavs. This feels like for Donovan Mitchell a repeat of why he left the Jazz, where he was the only guy playing offense in the playoffs, and this is kind of rough to watch again. Now I say that, and Evan Mobley still gave you 17 and 13, but so did Rudy Gobert.
So much of that was after the game was already out of hand. Like it was 2 points through the first half and half and a half.
Yeah. So no Niang,
I had money on it.
No Karis LeVert anywhere. It was a rough situation, as you mentioned. No Max Strus either. They're just AWOL. Combined, those 3 guys I just named gave you 11 points. So
Can't have
no,
that.
sorry,
Not against the Celtics.
13 points. My bad.
Can't have that. Not against the Celtics.
They scored 2 more points combined than Isaac Okoro scored. All his points came in the first half. So yeah, no, Cavaliers. I don't know if they even win one. I'm gonna say this is probably gonna end up a sweep the way the Celtics are playing. Just the fact that Jason Tatum didn't go off, and Derek White and Jalen Brunson or Jalen Brown. I have Jalen Brunson on my mind. Just look at the stat line again. And Jalen Brown both just dominated that team. I don't know if there's anybody on the Cavs that can match up with that. Really, like you have a Coro on either Tatum or Brown. You just have to. Well, who is then covering the other one? And then you have Derek White, who is just okay.
Can't.
I'm going to go score 20. Like you can't just figure that out. So yeah, the Cavs are in a tough spot. Some of these teams that have 3 guys that can be ball dominant facilitators are the hardest matchups in the playoffs because most teams only have 2 guys they can do that with. And those 2 guys are usually not good defenders, or they're one or the other. You know, you don't really get both. Whereas for the Celtics, let's not kid ourselves. Jaylen Brown is still an exceptional defender. Yes, he has no left hand offensively, but he is an exceptional defender. Jason Tatum can lock somebody up. And Derek White knows how to play defense very well. And then they're on offense and they're just dominant. It's crazy how well those 3 play off each other. It's like Derek White was what they wanted from Kyrie when Kyrie was there. So works
Bald
out
headed
pretty well.
Derek White is a whole nother animal. Like that bald head. Then once he shaved his head, he became an unstoppable force of nature. It
There
feels
was
like.
there was a Duncan video with him and Ben Affleck, and he wore Timberlands. For those that don't know what Tims are, Timberlands and some just straight up Lee Dungaree blue jeans and a Carhartt jacket. He was the most Bostonian looking dude in the world. Since that video came out, this man has been nigh unstoppable. I don't know what to do with it.
You know, it's crazy. We haven't even talked about who we thought was the key piece for them. The key pieces in the offseason from when we both picked them to go far in the playoffs. Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. Kristaps is obviously injured right now, and Drew Holiday is awesome. It's just look how awesome everyone else has been. It's been such a great team effort. Speaking of
Speak-
defensively locking people up, Drew Holiday. It's running the offense. The point guards that we talked about the Suns don't have, and the Celtics kind of struggle with the last couple of years with Marcus Smart being the only real quote unquote point guard on the team. Well, now you got 2 of them in Drew Holiday and what Derek White's turned into. So they're a well-oiled machine. There's a reason they were the best team, and good luck, Eastern Conference. Good luck. Like I don't care who comes between the Knicks and the Pacers. I feel like the Celtics are getting to the finals at this point. The question is, will they sweep the rest of the way? I think it's more likely they sweep than someone beats them in the East at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting them to the Eastern Conference Finals with no questions, and I'm getting them beating the Cavs without giving them a game. This is crazy.
Like they are that good. So that basically let us know down below what you guys think. Are we being too harsh on the Cavs, or am I being too lenient by giving them a potential game? But let us know down in the comments below. But that's gonna now take us into Kelcey's favorite part of every show. That's of course Crunch Time. Crunch Time brought to you by our good friends over at Outlier. Go to outlier.bet /HighLowSports. Free 7-day trials. Best smarter, not harder. Get all the numbers, rankings, betting lines, odds, everything you need to win some money if you're not following DJ's best bets when those pop out. So, Kelcey, we're going to head to the pitch now for Crunch Time, and we're going to talk a little bit of football.
Yeah, they just wrapped up the semifinal leg of the Champions League. By the way, I'm going to go back to this comment from earlier from Hector, dropping in Real Madrid versus Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League. Well, there's the spoiler alert. Dortmund ended up beating PSG. PSG 2-0 on aggregate, which is crazy to think that they held Kylian Mbappe to 0 goals over 2 legs. On the flip side there, you had Real Madrid. Well, Vinicius Jr. is an absolutely dominant player. I said this, I believe, last week's episode against Bayern. What he's been able to do has been insane. They ended up beating Bayern over the 2 legs 4-3 on aggregate. So big there. They almost wouldn't have made it through had it not been Josuelu scoring in the 90th minute stoppage time, so 90+1. Impressive game there. But yeah, so it sets up a very interesting matchup. I know Hector is super excited for Real Madrid, but if anybody doesn't know, Hector does a lot of singing bets on his show. I know Edward's currently taking a sabbatical, but he is a Dortmund fan, and Hector being a Real Madrid fan, they probably have some kind of bet on the line. So it's very interesting to see what's going to happen there. But this is a game that's very, very intriguing from a lot of ways because you have Real Madrid, who is a no doubt about it high quality team, but then you have Dortmund, who a lot of people were questioning where they were doing. They got rid of Jude Bellingham. Gio Reyna is being loaned out. You, I don't even know what you're doing as striker anymore, for the most part, and it's still Marco Royce's team. Bringing Jadon Sancho back from Manchester United really help bring them forward. Nicholas Fulkrug has been fantastic, but the big one being Adiemi stepping up and being fantastic as a striker. This team yeah, they're not just going to go quietly into the night versus Madrid when they go match up in Wembley. It's going to be a fun matchup. That game being on June 1st. Let me double check that date. Yep, June 1st at 3 p.m. So I'll be watching for sure. Cannot wait. I am not wearing either color, but yeah.
Absolutely. That is a can't miss game as well. You definitely don't want to miss on that one as well. So once again, we appreciate y'all for joining us here on this Wednesday evening. For you checking us out, one of your favorite places to listen to podcasts. It is always a pleasure to talk about what's going on in the wide world of sports with you. Be sure to drop down in the comment section down below what you think about the NBA playoffs, what you think about Real Madrid versus Dortmund in the Champions League, and of course, let us know what you think about the MLB rankings. We appreciate y'all for joining us, and we will see you all again next week.